Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Coach Prime, the Colorado Buffaloes kicking off spring practice later in the month of March. I want to dive into a few position battles and storylines that we're going to be following closely for this Colorado program. Over the last couple of weeks, we've taken deep dives into this roster. Obviously, have covered this team in the transfer portal. And the one thing that stands out to me as I continue to go back and watch the 2023 film, get caught up on the film from some of these transfers, is the depth of this Colorado team heading into 2024. And I'm talking about quality depth is certainly there when it probably wasn't quite there in 2023. You go back 12 months from now, we were really excited about guys like Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter, and that stuff manufactured itself on the football field. The depth, specifically along the line of scrimmage, certainly was lacking, but you look at the roster, you look at how the depth chart is constructed heading into spring practice, you are talking about some serious competition along the line of scrimmage, and that's what makes me most excited about this Colorado team heading into 2024. Want to get into some of those position battles, give you guys some of my predictions of who emerges from these position battles. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys, and as always, a massive shout out to the Colorado fans. This is a program that, truly is a blast to talk about, has really taken the college football world by storm. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown the boys. You guys consistently leave a ton of insightful comments. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. With all the position battles that we are going to see in spring practice, a team that we're going to be talking a lot about over the next couple of weeks. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with by far the biggest storyline for this Colorado team. And I'll say this right now, if this Colorado offensive line shows significant improvements heading into 2024, you are looking at one of the most dangerous teams in the Big 12. And I want to talk about the tackle position because I look at the inside of this offensive line with guys like Justin Mayers and Tyler Johnson coming in at guards, two of the better guards that you saw in the transfer portal. Colorado able to land both. And I'm hearing a lot of buzz about Tyler Brown maybe starting at center for Colorado. That inside of the offensive line, I have no questions about. I think the questions that you want to ask are at that tackle spot. And these questions that I'm saying certainly have answers. We're going to get those answers in spring practice. And I want to start with true freshman Jordan Seaton. Now, we do a lot of recruiting talk on this podcast, and I don't normally endorse starting true freshmen on the offensive line, especially at that offensive tackle spot. Jordan Seaton's a little different. And this is a guy that when you turn on the film from his senior year at IMG, you look at him and say, he can play college football right now. And that 6'5", 287, that is an outdated weight. I've taken a look at some of the pictures of Jordan Seaton participating in the winter workouts at Colorado. Looks like he's probably 310, 315 pounds, has put on some nice weight. That's the biggest question, I think, for this Colorado program is Jordan Seaton starting at left tackle. Is he going to be ready to come in and play at a high level for Colorado? And if you start getting some reports that Jordan Seaton looks like that dude, that is massive for this Colorado program. Now, we had a lot of hype with Cormani McClain last year. Now, a little bit of different prospects, right? Cormani McClain has one of the higher ceilings that we saw in that 2023 class, but a lot of us kind of recognized that he probably needed a year to get developed. Jordan Seaton's a little bit different. Still has that high upside, but he's more of a guy that you feel kind of good about coming in and playing at a high level immediately as a true freshman. Jordan Seaton, by far the name that I'm monitoring most for Colorado heading into that 2024 year. Now, on the right tackle spot, you got two guys that have played a lot of football, and that's exactly what you want. You talk about what you want in spring practice. You want competition. And at that right tackle spot, Khalil Benson and Savion Washington. And I'm taking a look at a lot of people just kind of writing the transfer in and Khalil Benson to come in and start. My prediction personally is going to be Savion Washington. I think Khalil Benson is a really, really solid tackle. And you talk about a tackle too in your offense. You feel pretty good about him being the third tackle on that offensive line, but I like Savion Washington. I think he's a little bit better of an athlete. I think he can deal with more athletic pass rushers better. And Savion Washington was a guy that played through some injuries in 2023, was making that jump from the group of five to that power five level. Whoever emerges, I think you feel pretty comfortable in starting. But I think I have Savion Washington taking over that right tackle spot. You have Jordan Seaton, Savion Washington, and Khalil Benson being first off the bench. And then the inside of the offensive line, like we talked about, being very strong. You feel pretty good about that. Now, the next position that I want to probably take a look at is that slot wide receiver in the wide receiver room in general. Now, if you're asking me to say who are the starting wide receivers for Colorado heading into 2024, Will Shepherd coming in from Vanderbilt. You got Travis Hunter, and you probably go with Jimmy Horn, who's returning, showed some really good things in 2023. Two guys I want to shout out. One, LaJohntay Wester coming over from FAU. You talk about a perfect fit in this Colorado offense in terms of, hey, we want to get the football out quick. We want to get the football out to our wide receivers in space, and we need guys who can excel after the catch. LaJohntay Wester is one of the best return men that you see across the country at FAU. This is a guy that has so much juice, not only catching the ball and working after the catch, but also creating separation early in his route trees. You got some really nice competition between Jimmy Horn and a guy like LaJohntay Wester, and I'll shout out a few other guys. You talk about Cam McCall, the true freshman coming from the state of Georgia, a guy like Amarian Miller on the outside, certainly going to give you some reps, probably comes in for Travis Hunter if he's continuing to play both ways. And Cordell Russell from TCU, you look at this wide receiver room and it is absolutely loaded. And I think what I'm most interested in is, all right, how does that wide receiver room shake out? But a lot of people, I feel like, not talking about LaJohntay Wester. This is a guy that I think comes in and makes some really good plays for this Colorado offense. Now, moving to the defensive side of the football, going back and looking at some of the numbers from this Colorado defense, looking at the film, one of the things I think Colorado really didn't have enough of in 2023 was that elite pass rusher. You look at the player that had the most sacks for this Colorado team in 2023, it was linebacker Levante Bentley. And that's not knock on Levante Bentley, who I think is going to be phenomenal for them in 2024. It's more of highlighting that you saw Colorado maybe lack that true pass rusher on those third and long downs that can pin the ears back and be disruptive and get after the quarterback. Jordan Dominic was extremely solid. I think a guy in BJ Green coming over from Arizona State was committed to Ole Miss, or was at least going to go to Ole Miss. This one's massive. You talk about a guy that had 34 quarterback hurries, 8 sacks. He is, kind of a prototypical wrecking ball on that defense, a guy that can play inside, a guy that can play outside. I really am looking at BJ Green emerging as that kind of elite pass rusher in that Colorado defense. And I'd highlight a few other guys too that I'm really excited about. Sam Okunlola coming from Pitt. This is a youngster, a guy that I think there's a lot of juice left to be squeezed with him. And then another really exciting guy, going back to kind of my recruiting days here, Quincy Wiggins coming from LSU. This was a guy we've already talked about kind of plenty on the podcast. He's a guy that played a lot of basketball coming out of high school, played his first 2 years at LSU, didn't really find the field very much. We knew Quincy Wiggins was a project, and he was a top 50 recruit because he had every physical trait that you want in a defensive lineman, but you knew that there were going to be some growing pains at the college level. Year 3 is normally when you see those players get out of those growing pains, especially some of those project players like Quincy Wiggins. What does Quincy Wiggins look like heading into 2024? That's another guy that I'm keeping my eye out for. And the last guy I want to talk about, and we have had a ton of discussion about this player in the comment section. Would love to hear from you guys. That starting nickel spot. Now, you look at the boundary cornerbacks. I don't think you have any questions about who's starting for them on the outside. You got Travis Hunter. You got Cormani McClain. You have a guy in DJ McKinney coming from Oklahoma State who 49 targets last year, only gave up 22 catches, was one of the better cornerbacks in the Big 12 on Oklahoma State. I'm looking at that nickel spot, and I love Preston Hodge to come in and fit that nickel role. Played it at Liberty last year at a phenomenal level. You look at it, and this is not necessarily a knock on Cameron Silman-Craig, a guy that played really good for Colorado. This is more highlighting exactly what we wanted to talk about, which is the competition and depth on this roster heading into next year is absolutely loaded. If you want to be a starter for this Colorado team, you got to be good. You have to earn it in practice. Preston Hodge, a guy that you look at the traits you want to see at that nickel role. You're playing kind of as that third linebacker, but you're playing in coverage. You got to be able to tackle. Preston Hodge certainly can tackle, only missed 7% of his tackles at Liberty last year. elite in coverage, especially in that short area quickness department. You're working against slot receivers. I love Preston Hodge. He's a guy that can blitz off the edge. He can play in the run game, checks a lot of boxes. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Colorado does with the creativity that you have. You have a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things, right? Obviously, Travis Hunter, Kamani McLean, Shiloh Sanders, DJ McKinney, Preston Hodge. A lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. What I'm looking for is what does that starting secondary look like for Colorado heading into 2024? We're probably going to get some answers heading into spring practice. Really excited about that position. But Preston Hodge, a huge favorite of mine, a guy that I think plays a lot and at a high level for Colorado. We'll cut it at that. And you talk about some questions we want to see answered. We outlined them. Didn't talk about Shedeur Sanders. Don't have any questions about Shedeur Sanders. One of the best quarterbacks in the country. If he can get protected, you're looking at an elite offense. If this Colorado team can take a step in the pass rush department with BJ Green and company, you're excited about that. Really excited about following this team in spring practice. A lot of position battles, a lot of competition. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.